Do you have a flat foot like a flipper? Do you have a narrow streamlined aero foot like a bullet? Do you have an arch or no arch? It doesn't matter what your feet look like, it matters how your shoe supports them or doesn't support them, and the position of your foot on the bike for ultimate comfort and power delivery. I sound like a salesman from the 90s.
How do you uncover what a lot of people call the hot button?
Now I'm going to take you through my foot activation session with my bike fitter Remain in 6 steps, and you will understand why you need proper foot support, why you may experience foot pain, pins and needles, numbness, and all the other tingly feelings that you don't really want in your feet. Now the point of the foot activation is to bring stability to the foot, aid comfort and improve your power delivery. So we started by measuring my foot. At this moment in time, I'm naive about all things foot support related. Now Remain has this contraption which literally looks like it can measure everything, because it can. When taking the measurements, Remain did it both seated and standing.
The problem when you're cycling is you're nor sitting nor standing.
Yeah.
You're kind of somewhere in the middle. You're not putting as much weight on your foot that you are when you're standing.
Now we started by taking all the measurements for the left foot, the length, which is self-explanatory. My left foot is a size 43 when seated and a 43.5 when standing. We then looked at foot width. This is an important one because feet can vary so much from individual to individual, and it directly impacts the type of shoes that you should be wearing. On my left foot, my width is B/C when seated and standing. This means that I have very narrow, streamlined feet. So moving on to arch height, and again it's something that is often overlooked, but as you'll see later in the video, arch support is crucial. Now Remain has this tool called a navoculometer, no idea how to pronounce that, which he personally 3D printed, dedication to the Bike Fit course. Now this is used to measure my arch height, which was 30 when seated and 24 when standing. Long story short, my arch is bigger than the Arc de Triomphe. We also measured arch length, which was 44 when seated and standing. So now my foot has been attacked with various measurement tools. We have the following measurements for my left foot. Remain also explained about foot shape and how this affects the type of shoes that you should wear. Now you can see clearly in this picture, on the left, the foot is super wide with a square end. If your foot is as wide as that, then you probably should never lose your balance. The middle example is narrower with slightly tapered toes, a little curve. The example on the right shows a narrow foot with a big taper on the toes. Now my foot is similar to the foot on the right. Now I'd never actually seen an example of this, but once you do, you can't help but look at your feet. Go on, I'll give you a second. We followed the same process for the right foot, and here are the final measurements. My feet are narrowed with tapered toes and a high arch to go with it. I'm forever going to claim that my feet are actually streamlined. Now we have every measurement for my canoes. It's time to find the right inner sole for me. I actually stood on my old inner soles and you can clearly see that there isn't enough support for my arch.
You're pedaling.
Yeah.
The force is going to go through the heel and the toes.
Okay, yeah.
But the arch is not going to push anywhere.
Yeah.
And so that brings one issue of doing a lot of force on both ends of the foot.
Yeah.
Which means you can have odd points, so you can suffer from pain and discomfort on those areas because they're taking all the load. But you could also suffer from instability.
Now the purpose of the inner sole is to spread the load equally across the foot. If areas have high pressure, that will decrease comfort or cause pain. Spreading the load relieves you of all your foot pain woes and brings comfort back to your life.
I'm so comfortable.
When speaking to Remain, we need to have 70% plus of the arch supported. The rest of the foot is mainly supported already because it's normally in contact with the shoe. So for me, the arch was the focus and getting support under there. My arch and new inner sole need to become familiar. So Remain went into his cupboard of dreams and whipped out some new inner soles. I'll put them up on screen. These are the inner soles that are going in my shoes. Now I need quite a high arch support. All you have to do is look at them both side by side and you can see the difference in support. It's absolutely glaringly obvious. I then tried the inner soles and I could instantly feel the support. To be honest, it instantly made me question all the shoes that I've been wearing for my short and prosperous life. I don't think that I've ever worn a pair of shoes that gave me the amount of support that these inner soles have in 20 seconds. Now you can see my arch is better supported, but the foot overall felt better because of the arch support. It was one of those, yeah, I should have done this a long time ago moments. Now onto the moulding process. For me, the arch had way better support, but I could also feel more pressure on the outside of the foot by the 5th metatarsal. With that feedback, Romain started moulding the inner sole to better fit my foot. This included raising the arch and flattening out the outside of the inner sole to remove that pressure. Now each time there was slightly more refinement and we were getting closer and closer for the perfect inner sole to match my foot.
I feel a lot of pressure there, yeah.
So it's pushed in and then your foot kind of pushes on that edge.
Romain also cut, or should I say sculpted, the right side of the inner sole like Michelangelo in his prime to further improve the fit. Now it took some refinement to remove the pressure on the outside of the foot from the inner sole, but in the end both inner soles fit my foot like a glove. Like a match made in foot heaven. It feels very specific to my body and scenario, which is great to see and feel. Time to see how the shoes fit dynamically. Now statically, aka standing or seating, may feel different from dynamically. On went the shoes and I hopped on the bike. I instantly feel much better. It's like my foot is being hugged from the top and from the bottom. How comforting. So I'm not used to this feeling. It's let's say unfamiliar. This takes me back to proprioception and what we perceive to be correct. Because I've never had this much support, it could feel incorrect. For me, it feels different, but good different. Trust in the process. It feels like more equal pressure coming up and me going down.
Right.
It's like my arch and my inner sole are entering into that new relationship, a relationship that I didn't know could even exist. Next on the hit list are wedges. Now, the forefoot wedges are going to determine the foot angle. So if we look at the foot from the back, it's basically this angle. This is going to help us create even pressure across the whole foot. Naturally, the shoe is flat, but your foot may not be flat against the shoe. You can see the running theme here. We don't want specific parts of the foot under pressure. So the forefoot wedges that we are starting with, they go inside the shoe and under the inner sole. They have an angle of 1.5 degrees. So each wedge is going to raise the inside of my foot slightly. On the left foot, we started with one and I could feel that the comfort was improved and my foot felt very stable and equally distributed pressure.
So if your foot needs that angle and it doesn't have it, it's doing that.
And that could create...
And by doing that, you're pushing in.
Yeah.
So now if we stabilize the foot, it's now pushing flat.
We then added another wedge, taking the foot to 3 degrees, which felt good. However, because there are 2 wedges inside the shoe now, I could feel the lip of the wedges running across my foot. Because of the lip, we are moving on to cleat wedges instead. So instead of using a wedge that goes on the inside of the shoe, it's a wedge that goes between the cleat and the shoe. This will eliminate the lip inside the shoe and across the foot. Now, if you haven't already, this is your moment to mark your cleats on the shoes. You probably should have done this before. Now, if you don't mark your cleat position, then you will need to go through the whole process again, trying to find the perfect position. And we all know how fun that can be. Now, with the cleats marked, off they came and on went the wedges under the cleat. With Romain and his usual tricks, I didn't actually know what had been added to the shoe. It's amazing when you don't know what has changed, how much you are forced to actually feel the difference and not assume the difference based on your knowledge of the change. To me, it didn't feel as good as a 3 degree wedge, so off came the shoe, more wedges were added or removed, who knows, and the cycle continued, pun intended. Romain then took me to a place that wasn't comfortable, a place where I could feel increased pressure along the inside of my foot. Feeling the pressure on the inside of my foot, I assumed that there were a large number of wedges under the foot, causing it to be at a harsh angle. This is the feedback I gave Romain, and he confirmed that that is indeed what was happening. When the dust settled and we had gone through various tests and changes, Romain had added a total of 3 cleat wedges under the left foot, 3 degrees in total. We then moved to the heel wedges. This is essentially the exact same thing as the forefoot wedges, but it goes under the heel inside your shoe. Now, I'll be honest, with 1 wedge, I felt no difference whatsoever. 2 wedges, my heel felt higher. Then as we added more wedges, all I felt is my heel getting higher and higher and higher. Now, because my heel was being raised, this was actually affecting my arch support. With no heel wedges, the arch felt good. But then as we raised the heel, I felt less support towards the back of my arch. Now, with this feedback, the heel wedges were removed, never to be seen again. We then focused on my right foot, and following the same process, First, the forefoot wedge inside the shoe. One felt good, but two felt too harsh, increasing the pressure along the inside of my foot again. We changed to cleat wedges, and with much trial and tribulation, we settled on one wedge on the right foot. This is very interesting because I had assumed that this would be somewhat symmetrical, but it goes to show that the left and right feet need to be treated as separate entities.
How else are we different?
It's easy to assume that your body is symmetrical, but from everything I've experienced so far in bike fit, it's probably not. We then moved on to heel wedges, and again, there wasn't much difference. We tried 4 wedges in total, and the heel again felt like it was simply raising and the support for my arch was being reduced. So again, Romain whipped them out the shoe, and we settled for one foot wedge on the right foot, which is an angle of 1 degree. Leg length, something that lots of you asked about in the bike fit video. Now, my first point, which is the first thing Romain said to me, is you need to think about leg length from a dynamic point of view, not a static point of view. For example, if you had one leg that was 1 centimeter shorter than the other, when you stand up, this would likely have an effect on your stance and your body position. This is static. However, that's not the case on the bike. Think about all the places where a discrepancy could be adjusted for, or your body will naturally adjust.
So you're having a leg length discrepancy. So if you've got one, let's say the right leg is shorter than the left. Yeah. By just having an ankle that is slightly more flexible than the other, you can make up for that leg length discrepancy by just rotating ever so slightly the ankle.
Yeah. Getting symmetry statically doesn't mean it's going to be symmetrical dynamically. Now onto the test to see how I feel, which starts with a discussion. Do I feel a discrepancy already in my legs? Currently, no. Is one leg working harder than the other? Does one foot have a smoother motion than the other? The answer for me is no. They both feel pretty equal. Irrespective of my legs feeling balanced, Romain added a shim under my left foot. This essentially shortens the distance to the left pedal. As we have done with other adjustments, we're going to go to the extremes to feel what is incorrect, so I know what feels correct. Without feeling the extremes, it's all just guesswork really for me. With the shim under my left foot, we then did some cadence drills. Firstly, really low watts and extremely high cadence. We're talking around 150 RPM, literally going like the clappers. All the time, Romain is observing and looking for discrepancies. You can also feel your body moving if it's incorrect. This is because one leg is essentially traveling further, and when you are pedaling at 105 revolutions per minute, this will show itself pretty quickly. Romain then put the resistance up to 550 watts. Cheers, mate. And we repeated the process. For me, the shims under my left foot created an imbalance. It felt like the left foot didn't have as far to travel. With the higher cadence, my left leg also fatigued quicker, indicating that it was pushing harder. I think previously I've had this ideology of how I should feel on the bike, based on other content and information that I've consumed, that the bike is correct and I need to fit the bike. In reality, when you're on the bike, you know how your body feels. When that was combined with Romain's knowledge and observations, collaboratively we can find the best position based on what I'm experiencing, what I'm feeling there and then. Now, we tested this extensively with high cadence, high and low power, many observations and constant changing of shims under the foot. And I always felt an imbalance when there was a shim under one foot. Now, it looks quick in the footage, but I figured you fine humans didn't want to watch me pedal for 30 minutes. In the end, we went with no shims under either foot. We are going to monitor this and see how it goes in the future. Remember, bike fit is a process. Overall, my feet are in a far better position, and the overall support, balance and stability of both my feet have been massively improved. To be honest, I feel like I should go and put high arch sport inner soles in all my shoes. So now you know what happens in a foot activation session, but you should check out this video next to see the full bike fit process in 6 methodical steps and how to find the perfect position on your bike. A big thanks to Romain for letting me record this session and bring his knowledge to the screen. I'll see you in the next one.